Daf Ayin Amud Beis. We'll begin Daf Ayin Amud Aleph, 7 lines from the bottom. We had a Shiloh, according to Ben Taima. Ben Taima says that the Chagigas Yudalid is similar to the Korban Pesach, has similar halachas to the Korban Pesach, and therefore, just like the Korban Pesach is only eaten for 1 day and 1 night, the Chagigas Yudalid, as opposed to other Korbanos Chagiga, which are eaten for 2 days and a night, is also only 1 day and a night. And also it has to be eaten roasted. We had a Shiloh, does the Isser of Etzem Lois Hishva Boy, the Isser of breaking the bones, does that apply to the Chagigas Yudalid or not? According to Ben Taima, is there also an Isser to break the bones of the Chagiga that's brought with the Korban Pesach? So let's bring a raya from the following. Tashma, let's bring a raya from the following. Sakin shenimsas barabosa. If a person found a knife in the Azara on the 14th of Nisan, now normally if a person finds a knife, he has to be chaysh that it was tomei, so you have to be toivel it, and you can't use it until nightfall. But over here, if he finds a knife on Yudalid Nisan, over here we assume that the owner, he knew that he'd be using the knife, he would need the knife for the Korban Pesach, so even if it was tomei, he was toivel it on Yud Gimel, and it had Herav Shemesh on the night following, so it would be tor. It would be tor on Yud. So if he finds a knife on Yud, we can assume that it's tor, because even if it was tomei, it already had a tahara. As Rashi explains, we assume that the knife that was found, it must have been lost on this day, on this very day, on Yud. Because since there's so many people in the Azora, so many people coming for the regel, then if it was lost on prior to Yudalid, then it would have been found earlier. If it was found today, it must have been lost today, because due to the multitude of people, it would not have remained there unfound without being picked up for this till the next day. So if it was found on Yudalid, that means it was lost on Yudalid. But we assume the owner knew that he would need it for the Korban Pesach for the next day, so even if it was tomei, he was matayer. So therefore, if you find it, sheichet b'miyad, you can use it for the shlit right away. But if you find it on the 13th, then you found it on the 13th, there's no assumption that the owner was already toivel it might have been tomei, so therefore, sheinu matbil. Therefore, you have to do a tefillah. You might have to, even if it was, you have to do another tefillah, even if there was a tefillah, because al chashash we're required to be toivel. So therefore, you have to be matbul, you have to be toivel. Kupitz, but if you find a cleaver, if you find a kupitz, it's a meat chopper. So bein bezeh sheina matbil. Even if you find it on Yud Daled, there's no assumption over here that the owner was toivel it from the day before, and you have to be toivel it. So, who's the ton over here? Ilim Rabbanan. If you say it's a Rabbanan, Ma'ishnosak in the matbil. Why do you say the knife? That we assume that the owner was toivel it from beforehand, because he would need it for the Korban Pesach, so we can assume he was toivel it from before, so that it would be roy for the Korban Pesach. Kupitz nami, we should say the kupitz also. According to the Rabbanan, you're allowed to chop up the chagiga. You're allowed to break the bones. So therefore, he knows that he'll have to bring a korban chagiga the next day. Well, just like you say that in anticipation of using the knife, he's toivel it the day before, you would say the same thing by the kupitz. Elalav, you must say the ben teimei. You must say that the tan is ben teimam. Ushma mino yesh ba mishum shiras ha'etzem. And therefore, we must say that according to ben teimah, that there is an isser of breaking the bones. Let's bring a raya therefore from here, because according to the Rabbanan, there should be no difference between the knife and the kupitz. You're anticipating to use the knife. You're anticipating to use the kupitz. Elamai, the tana must be ventema. And therefore, what's the chilik? The chilik is a knife. He's anticipating that he'll use it, and therefore he's toivel it on Yud Gimel. the kupitz, he doesn't anticipate using it the next day because you can't. The kupitz is used to break bones, and he knows he can't break the bones, not of the Korban Pesach and not of the Chagiga either. And therefore, there's no assumption that he was Taivalet on Yud Gimel. Maybe he would wait till Yud Dalet. And therefore, you can't use the kupitz without being Taivalet. So can't we see from here, we should be able to bring a raya from here that the Isser breaking the bones, according to Ben Tema, applies not only to the Korban Pesach, but applies to the Chagiga as well. Where it says, like, no, we can't bring a raya. La'ilam Rabbanan. Really, I'll tell you that this could be going according to the Rabbanan. Why wouldn't he be Taival the kupitz? It was going Shabbat Shabbos. That we're talking in a case where Yudal is on Shabbos. And Yudal is on Shabbos, you don't bring the Korban Chagiga. It's not brought on Shabbos. The Chagiga's Yudalet is not Deicha Shabbos. The Gemara, how can you say that? Hamidikana Seifa, it says in the Seifa, Chal Arba'asa Liyais B'Shabbos. If the 14th falls on Shabbos, the Seifa says if the 14th falls on Shabbos, then Sheichet Ba Miyat. Then it says he can shacht it right away. Then he can assume that even the kupitz was tor, because the owner would not have waited till Yudalit to be matal the kupitz, because he can't be taival the kupitz on Shabbos. If Yudalit is on Shabbos, he can't be taival on Shabbos, so he couldn't be taival on Yudalit. He must therefore have been taival on Yud Gimel. So therefore, you can use the kupitz immediately. And if you find the kupitz on the 15th of Nisan, also sheichet b'miyad, because there also you can be sheichet miyad, because he would have anticipated to need the kupitz for the 15th, and therefore he would have been toivelet from beforehand. Nimsa's kupitz kshura l'sakin. If you find the kupitz that is kshura to the sakin, that it's tied to the knife, harika sakin. Well, just like you assume that the knife he was taival from before in anticipation of using it for the Korban Pesach, well, the kupitz, if it's tied to the knife, it was taival the knife, he was taival the kupitz. So therefore, it's again another case, another example where you can assume that the kupitz is tor. So therefore, what do we see over here? But in any event, Mechlal the Reisha La B'Shabbos Askinan. The Seif over here gives one of the scenarios of Chal Arba'os Liyais B'Shabbos. Doesn't that imply that the Reisha is not talking about Shabbos? And therefore, if it's not talking about Shabbos, well, according to the Rabbanan, if the Tana would be the Rabbanan, why would the kupitz not be assumed to be Tor? He would have need of the kupitz for the Chagiga. Elamai, it must be that according to Ben Tema, and the kupitz is not assumed to be tor, because he can't use the kupitz, because there's an isra of breaking the bones even on the Chagigas Yudalid. The Gemara again says no, it's not a raya, because I can tell you another scenario. Vela sheba b'meruba. We're talking where there is no Chagigas Yudalid because the chabura is a small chabura. And therefore, there's large portions for the Korban Pesach, and therefore there's no need for the Chagigas Yud Dalet. So therefore, we're talking in a case where he was not taivel kupitz because he was not anticipating using it because he wouldn't need it, because the Korban Pesach has large portions. How would he know that? The determination of the Chabura is made up right up until the time when they shach the Korban Pesach. So on the day beforehand, he doesn't know exactly how large the Chabura is going to be for the next day. There may be people who join, there may be people who drop out. Therefore, he wouldn't know, so he would always be taivel, the kupis, just in case it's needed. So that is not an alternative. The Ella Sheba Betuma. The Gemara says, but there's another alternative. There's another alternative that even according to the Rabbanon, that you would not need the kupetz, it would not be needed for the next day. What's that? Shabbat B'Tumah. We're talking when the Korban Pesach is B'Tumah. The Tzibur was Tomei, and the Pesach is B'Tumah, but Chagiga is not B'Tumah. You don't bring the Korban Chagiga even though the Tzibur is Tomei. And therefore, he has no need for the kupitz, to be time of the kupitz. The same question we had before. Well, how does he know that the Korban Pesach is going to be brought Betuma? On the 13th, how does he know that it's going to be brought Betuma, and therefore to say that he knows there's not going to be a Chagiga? Our answer is the misnosi. In a case where the Nasi died, so the whole Tzibur or Roiv Tzibur is going to be Metama, and therefore it's going to be a case where most of the Tzibur is Tomei, and it's going to be a case where the Pesach is brought Betuma. Well, when did he die? How is it that when did he die that caused Roiv Tzibur to be Tomei? If you say he died on the 13th of Nisan, then if that's the case, Sakin Lamalei Damatbala. We're saying that the Sakin is presumed to be Tar, because the owner, he was Taivelit on the 13th in anticipation of using it for the Korban Pesach. Well, if the Nasi died on the 13th, why is he going to be Taivelit? He knows that it's a Pesach that's Mal B'tzuma. So just like you're saying he's not going to be Taivel the Kupitz, he's not going to be Taivel the Sakin either, because it's Mal B'tzuma. Ella the Mizbar Boss. Elamai, you're going to say the Nasi died on the 14th. And on the 13th, they didn't know that it was Pesach Babatuma, so they were Taivel the knife. And therefore the knife is assumed to be Tar. So therefore, if that's the case, well, Maishna Sakin the Matbil, or Maishna Kupit, Loy Matbilo. What's the difference between the two? Why would you say, well, if they don't know on the 13th, they don't know that it's going to be a Pesach Babatuma, and therefore they were Taivel the knives, well, they don't know it's going to be Babatuma, they're under the assumption that there's going to be a Korban Chagiga, they would be Taivel the Kupitz as well. What's the chilik? Your answer is Lo Tzricha, the Nasi Geises B'Shleishasar. Now, we're talking in a case where on the 13th, the Nasi was Geises, meaning he was on his deathbed. He was on the verge of dying. So therefore, they think that it's likely that he will die, and it's likely, therefore, that the Pesach will be Bar B'Tumah. So therefore, the Cheshbon is as follows. Sakin, the Sakin, it's only one suffix. Perhaps he'll die, perhaps it'll be Bar B'Tumah, perhaps not. It's a suffix. So on the tzad that he won't die, on the tzad that it won't be brought B'Tumah, they will be Taivel the knife. It's only one suffix, they'll Taivel the knife just in case that they are Tohar, just in case they need a B'tara. So therefore, Matbila. But Kupitz, it's Reis Sveika, but the Kupitz, it's Reis Sveika. It's two Sveikas. Because why are they going to be Taivel it? They have one suffix, maybe the Nasi will die, maybe it's Bar B'Tumah, and therefore there won't be a Chagiga. Now, even if he doesn't die, maybe they won't need it, because maybe it will be, the portions of the Pesach will be large, maybe the Chabur will be small, and they won't bring a Chagigas Yudalit. So they have two Sveikas, so they're not going to necessarily put the effort to be Taivelit, because there is a good chance that they won't need it, that they won't bring the Chagigas Yudalit. So we can't assume that therefore they were Taivel the Kupitz, and it can't be assumed to be in a state of Tahara. Kupitz is Reis Sveika, Loy Matvile. We can't assume that he will be Taivel. So therefore, we have no raya from this case what Ben Tema holds as far as the Isser of Shviras Etzem on the Chagigas Yudalit. Tanya, Yehuda ben Durtoy, Perish Hu, Durtoy Benoi, V'halach Yashol Bedon. So he separated himself from the Chomim, him and his son, and they went to live in the Durham far away from the Beis HaMikdash. Why is that? Why did they do that? Omer, they said, Im Yov Eliyav Yom Yisrael, if Eliyav Novi comes, and he says to Klal Yisrael, B'pnei ma lo chagagtem chagiga b'Shabbos. There was Shabbos, Yudal was Shabbos, and why didn't you bring the Korban Chagiga? Now the Chachamim hold that the Chagiga is not doich Shabbos. He held that it is doich Shabbos. He held that it was like the Korban Pesach, and just like the Korban Pesach is doich Shabbos, he held it's also doich Shabbos. Now therefore, it would be a taina. If he would be in Yerushalayim and there be able to be makriv the Korban Pesach and be able to makriv the Chagiga, there would be a taina on him why weren't you? Why didn't you? And he held you have to. Therefore, he moved far away, that he would be considered b'derech rechaika, and he'd be patur, and there wouldn't be a time on him why he didn't bring the chagiga, why he didn't bring the chagigas yudal. He's b'derech rechaika, so he's patur. So because he said him Yovel Yovi Yamel Yisrael Mibnei Malu Chagaktam Chagim B'Shabbos Mahin Oimrim Loi. What will he answer? Timahani Al Shnei Gedei Le'Dor Shemai V'Avtayim. He says, I said to me and for me, appellate to me on the two Gedei Le'Dor Shemai V'Avtayim. Shem Chacham Gedei V'Darshanim Gedeilim V'Lo Yarmel Hem Yisrael Chagiga Deichz Shabbos. Why didn't they teach them that the Korban Chagiga is Deichz Shabbos? Therefore, he moved away so that he would be potter. So he held that the Chagiga, that the Korban Chagiga is Deichz Shabbos, just like the Korban Pesach is Deichz Shabbos, the Chagiga is Deichz as well. Minchas Chinuch says that L'chera, we have to say that he went even to Chutz La'aretz, because otherwise, what would be but the Chiyuv of being Oil Regel? Therefore, when he said to the Dorim, he suggests that perhaps we're talking, he went even to Chutz La'aretz. So we see over here a machlokes whether the Chagiga is Deichz Shabbos or not. Omarav, my time of the Ben Dutoy, what's his for to say that? D'chsiv v'zavachta Pesach l'Hashem l'kechet tzoyin u'boker. It says in the Torah, it says that you bring the Korban Pesach, the tzoyin u'boker. It says tzoyin and cattle. So what does it mean, Bakar? The Korban Pesach doesn't come from Bakar, it comes from Kvasim Izim. Ella, so what does it mean? What is the pasuk referring to? Ella tzayin ze Pesach. When it says tzayin, that's referring to the Korban Pesach. Bakar ze Chagiga. It says Bakar, it's referring to the Korban Chagiga. V'amar Rachmana v'zavachta Pesach, and it calls it a Pesach. So it calls the Chagiga Pesach to teach you that it's like the Pesach and it's Deichz Shabbos. Amar Ravashi, Va'anan, time of the Prushim, Nekev and Nifresh. He says, shall we explain the pasuk according to the Parshonim, the ones who separate from the Chachamim? So Elamai, that's not Pshat in the pasuk. So what is the Pshat in the pasuk? Elakro l'Rav Nachman Udasa. It's like the limit of Rav Nachman. Dam Rav Nachman Amar Rav Baravua Minay L'Meiser Pesach Shekar Shlomim. How do we know that if an animal, it was left over, it was a Korban Pesach that was left over, that they weren't makrit, so they didn't use it for Pesach, and now it's after Pesach? How do I know that you're makrit it as a Shlomim? How do I know it's brought as a Shlomim? So, for instance, a person lost, he was makdish an animal for Korban Pesach, he lost it, he used a replacement, and now he finds the first one, so it's after Pesach. What's the status of it? You're makrit it as a Korban Shlomim. How do I know that? Because it says, "Shenemar v'zvachta Pesach l'Hashem l'kechet tzayne boker." V'chi Pesach min boker bo. Does Pesach come with a boker? Havaloi in Pesach bo elim nekvazim minayizim. So what is the boker? What is the reference to boker? Ella, what it means to say, Ella meiser Pesach ye'el dover haba min tzayne boker. What it means to say is that the Pesach, the meiser Pesach, or the Pesach that's left over, you bring it as a korban that comes from something which can be brought either tzoyin or bakar, which means a shlomim. That it teaches you that a meiser Pesach is a shlomim. Because the shlomim is the only korban that you can bring from tzoyin, bakar, zochar, and akeva. So it's not specified. So therefore, this teaches you that the meiser Pesach is shlomim. So Ben Doratai says that the Chagiga is Deichz Shabbos. Chagigas Yudal is Deichz Shabbos. The Rabbanon, my time loy Deichz Shabbos. But according to the Rabbanon, why is the Chagiga not Deichz Shabbos? Now we're understanding, the Gemara is understanding, according to the Rabbanon, even the Chagigas Tezvav is not Deichz Shabbos. Now why should that be? Havare Korban Tzibur. It's a Korban Tzibur. It should be Deichz Shabbos. Now, we never saw explicitly that the Rabbanan said that the Chagigas Tezvav is not Deichz Shabbos. So where do we infer this from? So this explains because Ben Tema holds that even though the Chagigas Yudalit is compared to the Korban Pesach, it's not Deichz Shabbos. Even though the Chagigas Yudalit has the similarities to the Korban Pesach, and therefore it's Nechal only L'Yom V'Layla, etc. The Korban Pesach is Doicha Shabbos, but Chagigas Yudal it is not. Therefore, it must be, why would that be? Why would Ben Tema say that it's not? It should be similar to the Korban Pesach. Elamai, it must be because there's some limud that the Chagigas Tezvav is not Doicha Shabbos, and we learn out the Chagigas one from each other. So therefore, as far as the Rabbanan is also, they must be that limud that Chagigas Tezvav is not Doicha Shabbos. Well, why would we say that Chagiga is not Doicha Shabbos? Why should we say that it's a Korban Sibur? It's a Korban Sibur and should therefore be Doicha Shabbos. Now, Taisus points out that, generally speaking, that we say that a Korban Sibur, it's Doicha Shabbos if it's a Korban Sibur that's Kavua Zvan, it has a set time. The Chagigas Tezvav, even though you're supposed to be Makravit on the first day of the Chag, but you have the whole Chag to be Makravit. So Taisus therefore says we're going according to the Man Domer that says it's a Korban Sibur even if it's not Kavua Zman. Rashi says it's considered a Korban Sibur Kavua Zman because it still has, even though it's not one particular day, but it still has the particular time of the Chag. So I'll call upon him, why is it not Doicha Shabbos? Amar Rabbi Loi Mishum Rabbi Yehuda ben Safra Amar Kro V'Chagoisam Oiso Chag L'Hashem Shivas Yomi Masechet. It says your Chagoisam Shivas Yom Masechet. So this Chag is referring to the Chag of Sukkos. Now Sukkos has Sukkos and Shmini Atzeres. Yet it says 7 days you do the Chagiga 7 days. Shiva, why 7? Shmoinav. There's 8. So why does it say only 7? Elamikan, the Chagiga, Shena Doicha Shabbos. You see over here that Chagiga is not Doicha Shabbos, and the Chagiga doesn't come for 8 days, only 7 days. Ki also Rabban Amar Amar Lisnei Rabboisa. He said, I asked the following question before my Rebbeim. Pam Shata might say Elashisha. Well, sometimes it's only 6. Because Ki Goin Shechal Yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag V'Shabbos. Sometimes you have 2 Shabbos in the Chag. If the first day of Sukkot is Shabbos, then the last day is Shabbos. So there's 2 days that you don't have the Chagiga. So it should only say 6 days. Amar Abai says, Avin Tichla. Now he says, Avin, the one who didn't have children, Lema Kihai Milsa. Should he say this? Should he ask such a kasha? Shmoina Lamishkachas Klal Klal. The Torah doesn't say Shmoina because you never have 8 days. So therefore it says 7 because you never find 8 days. Because it's not Doicha Shabbos, so you never have the Chagiga for 8 days. But Shiva is a B'Rav Shonim. So, but 7 is, on most of the years, then you do have 7 out. Sometimes you only have 6. But it's not inappropriate for the Pasuk to say Shiva, because you do have 7. Most of the time you have 7. You never have 8, so it doesn't say 8. But why should it not say 7? Why should it say 6? Yes, there's some times that you don't have 7, but usually you do.